Okay, hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Team Next Level Quad Pod. I'm Coach Greg and I'm joined by Yvonne.
Hello again.
Along with Rich and James. Marilyn couldn't be here tonight. So, gentlemen, how's it going?
Hey there.
Stupendous. Phenomenal.
I'm doing well also.
Well, you answered when I introduced you. So thanks for joining us, Yvonne.
Thanks for having me.
Nice sweatshirt.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so last week's episode, we talked about our experience at North Carolina. How'd you do?
I did pretty well. I was a little nervous for it being my first time back after my first time ever.
Some would call that your second time.
No, Rich has had multiple firsts.
That's true.
I was going to say that's
I said-
something I would say.
I said most people would call that their second.
It's a lot. Like having that 1 year off was like, am I going to like it? Am I going to do okay? Am I going to pick up where I left off? Because I really didn't, keep with any consistency in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy. I was happy with how everything worked out. So,
What was your favorite point of the weekend or the race in general?
I mean, I personally, I just enjoy the entire experience. The race is just kind of something that's fit into it that justifies me going down somewhere with a bunch of my friends for the weekend. But the whole trip was just a lot of fun. It was great to see how much everyone has grown as athletes, and everyone did really well. And I just felt like it was great to be a part of again. So I was happy to be back.
Yeah, it was great to have you there.
Which segment of the race, though, did you enjoy the most?
I think I enjoyed the run the most. It was like a nice little, I didn't enjoy running, but I enjoyed the run as far as like their route. And there was a lot of people, especially when you got to that downtown area. And, it was, I had always thought, everyone's like, oh, flat race. And I actually don't love the flat races just because you're just constantly flat. It's a lot of pounding. And so having like a little bit of elevation and change of scenery, I thought it was a really nice race. Undulations.
Did you notice the lake?
Yeah, I think I did. I
What do you mean,
noticed.
did you notice it? Did you not notice
I
it?
didn't notice it at all. I don't think I looked.
We
out.
talked about this.
I don't even know where it
Yeah.
was. I know there
don't
was
think
one.
Him and Marilyn noticed the lake. I
Right.
saw it a little bit.
It was by like the park, right?
He wouldn't know. He didn't see it.
I didn't even see the
Oh,
park.
Okay.
That's
The part we like ran through like a good amount.
the entirety of the back half of the course.
I
There
was
was a
just like-
lake to your right.
Where were you?
I was just like, I got to catch up to Marilyn.
Oh, yeah.
That was
No.
it.
I actually, like, there was a couple of times where I was like, I need to take this in. Like, let me just, like, look at my surroundings and see where I'm at. So, yeah,
But it did seem like
Good
it was
job.
very scenic.
it was. It was nice.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear how your
How was
kids
the drive
scored
down and back?
on it. It was very fun. The drive back, I think we lost a lot of steam.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, by the drive
it
back,
was,
we were.
Yeah.
Just went out too strong.
I think just, there were more pockets of, haha, this is funny, and just more quiet time. I think I fell asleep
Self-reflection? Was there self-reflection?
No, I think there was just pure exhaustion.
Exhaustion.
I think
Yeah.
we were very consistent.
Yeah.
Just consistent.
Well,
the
because
whole
you
way.
guys were lame. There was
I understand now why you say the bully part. I get it.
See?
I get it. I see where it's coming from.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Rich was trying to get his way into our car, so there was definitely something to be said about
Yeah. for
car
sure.
Maryland.
Car Marilyn.
Yeah, not car Koichi.
Yeah. But we love you, Koichi. All right. So for tonight, it is, November 2nd tonight. Everybody's into the off season, and this is the time to sort of plan out for the future and next year and stuff. So we thought we'd talk about how to kind of go about doing that, and more like the theory behind it as opposed to the actual practice. I'm sure we'll get into that stuff too, but we talk about how to periodize your training plan for, setting up your annual training plan or your year's goals and stuff like that to get the most out of yourself. So I think this is one of those topics that like people hear, they talk about, they say the word periodization, but do they really know what's involved with it and why some of the things are set up the way they are and stuff like that. So,
Why don't we start with, in the simplest form, what is periodization?
Yeah, I had to look it up when I got the topic and how it applied to triathlon. So
Very good.
That'd
You
be
did
good.
vast research.
I mean, that was about the extent of it.
it's like James will give me my notes, my
She
shocking
said look
points.
it up.
Yeah,
I did.
that's good.
Yeah.
So
So what is it? So periodization is a way to break down your goals and break down the different sort of, I like to think of them like energy systems that you need to train to eventually get to race day in your best performance. You can't do it all at the same time all the time. Like you can't just train one single way. And so periodization is a way to break that down into smaller, kind of more manageable chunks that you can then focus on individual pieces of improvement and then build on each of those throughout the course of the season.
I think when I found out what that was, a lot of new triathletes or people looking into the sport, they think you're just on all the time, the same level of intensity, same volume, and that's something that I think everyone has to realize when they first start, that no, it's actually quite strategized on how they build their training plans.
Yeah.
Is this something unique to triathlon, or is it in all sports?
No, I mean, this is something, I'm not going to speak for all sports, but I'm going to say all endurance sports. You see this. So, I mean, the human body is amazing, right? It'll adapt to whatever you throw at it. And if you just continually do the same thing over and over and over again, week after week, then you're going to get really used to that. And then you're going to stagnate and not improve. So periodization theoretically should give you consistent improvements, cycle after cycle, year after year, so that you can kind of reach those peaks.
that segues nicely into the importance of periodization, why we do it.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest kind of things we forget about why we do it is that fresh look at a training plan, and just getting something kind of new is mentally refreshing also. Like if you just laid out a week and said, okay, you're going to do this for the next 52 weeks, no way it's happening.
Mind numbing.
Yeah. Yeah. So periodization, I think there's a big side of that to it when you know that there's, your loading weeks and your recovery week, you have that recovery week to look forward to. And it's okay, base season is over. I'm kind of tired of these long sessions. Now we're going to change it up a little bit. And you keep having those small changes to the way that the training is being done.
Apparently it was the Eastern Europeans or something that pioneered this system.
Yeah. I mean, for all the stuff that those guys did that, is absolutely horrendous when it comes to training stuff.
In addition to the steroids.
Well, that's part of it. But then it was let's take 1,000 kids, and I mean literally kids at grade school level, and train them nonstop, and we'll make some champions out of them, but we'll also destroy 99% of them.
The ones that survive are the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was Olympic training centers.
Yeah.
And you got selected for them. And then you just left your family, said bye, and then you went to train there.
Yep.
I didn't make it to one.
I was going to ask, what was it like?
I was going to say, sounds
didn't make
amazing. Bye, guys. Gotta go train.
Just sounds amazing, but
Yeah.
probably not.
I'm sure.
It's like a brute force method.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really think there's much of support system there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we digress.
Yeah. So
That's the best part of our show.
Again.
So, importance of periodization, reduce risk of injury.
Right.
And then you can basically move along adaptation, I guess, as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, probably as efficiently as possible.
We're all in agreement.
Yeah, I concur.
All right. Well, let's move on then. What are the I guess if we're talking about periodization, the I guess the main blocks, I guess we'd call them, or
Phases.
phases.
Yeah.
Break
Yeah.
that down.
Yeah. So usually, go ahead.
Well,
Finish.
I was going to say that I a lot of times when you talk to triathletes or endurance athletes, they're like, okay, well, I got this event. It's 4 months away, making up numbers. And they're like, okay, well, I need to do this distance. So that means I need to, build up to it by doing this week, this the week before, and this the week before. So it incrementally gets me to that distance. But I think a lot of them don't actually consider this, what you're going to, talk about, which is this like period of, there's different periods you need to consider, not just like what it's going to take. How do you ramp up little by little to that race?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that a lot of our listeners and everyone should think about, this periodization, this cycle.
So before I guess we even talk about the different cycles, should we first say or talk about the annual training plan, and then say like you kind of pick the keys, like pick what is that A race, put that on the calendar, and then you start.
Yeah, you have to start with the date of that A race. And we're going to talk about some different, like, I guess, theories and practices about, that kind of stuff. But I think for most athletes, until they are very well developed, it's hard to truly peak more than once a year. It's just, it puts a big stress on the body. It takes a lot to peak and then come down and then go ramp back up again without doing a full-on cycle. And it also gets in the way of your long-term development, because anytime you're going to peak and recover, there's going to be there's going to be a loss of fitness associated with it. Like that is potentially getting in the way of you just getting stronger year after year after year. So a single peak is kind of the easiest way to plan for it and talk about it, and probably in practice for most people is the best way to do it. Now, that doesn't mean you can only race once a year. It just means that you are focusing your season on that one event, you're training, you're building towards that, and everything else is supplementary to that.
And that doesn't matter between distances or anything like that, right? It's just literally one big event that's going to be your A race, and then everything else supports that.
And I think the training will change leading up to that. If it's an Olympic or a half Ironman or Ironman, that final build and taper is going to change depending on the distance.
It might be easier to peak at the same like level of height for shorter races. So if you're trying to do a sprint and you're trying to peak in March, you could probably taper and then recover and then do some cycles and peak again in September, for example, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying if you're in this for the long haul, right? And you want to say, you're saying to yourself, I want to be the best triathlete, irrespective of distance, or I want to be the best that was a juicy cherry, huh, James? Or I want to be the best cyclist I can be, or the best runner. Then you have to look at it as a long-term project and not how good can I get this year? It's how good can I be in 5 years? How good can I be in 10 years? And the more you add high stress events to that calendar, the more you're going to take away from that potential. So I think that if you want to race a lot, that's perfectly fine. But the idea of saying like, this is what it's all about, this is what all my season's going to be, I think for the first couple of years of your athletic kind of journey, that one a year is probably a good way to go about it. One big one. And it doesn't mean long, one big event that you're really focused on.
Yeah.
And so for us last year, like Wilmington was our A race. And then we raced a lot.
Right. I mean, I did 5 different races.
You're defining last year weirdly.
I know. I'm like,
last
season.
Ago. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
it was 2 weeks
miss a couple.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Right. So, that was our big one. We did a full 2-week taper. Like, I haven't done anything since. I know you guys are moving a little bit and doing a little weightlifting, which is fine. But like, Eagle Man was a decent goal. Like, and I wanted to go well there, but I only rested for a week. I only recovered for a week, and I didn't dig too deep in the race where I needed more than that. So it was, you'd call that a B race. The Olympics were C races. The Olympics were just another training day.
Mhm.
And I did 3 of those. I trained the day after all of them. And just, I didn't really rest into them, maybe the day or two before, but they didn't have they had no weight to them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the focus was all on that last race last year.
Last year.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
He has.
I remember like it was like 2 weeks ago.
You know what it is? He has no faith in your editing abilities to get this out before 2024.
That's possible too.
I mean, I'm just as bad on the video, or worse,
Like,
actually.
by the
I'm much
time
worse.
this comes out,
Yeah. It
Yeah.
might be 2024. It might be last year.
I feel like it was a year ago.
Yeah. So you pick that A race, you pick that big goal of yours, and then you build backwards from that. The kind of terminology that gets used pretty commonly around all different sports is you use macrocycle, mesocycle, microcycle. So your macrocycle is that whole big training block, And so if you're only having one event a year, it's from when you start until that race. That's your macro cycle. If you have more big events, if you have two A races a year, then each from start until the first one is going to be a macro cycle, and then from when you start for the second one to the second one, it's going to be the second macro cycle. And then your mesocycles are usually like smaller blocks. A couple of weeks is kind of a standard. It could be a couple months. I think beyond about 12 weeks, it's probably a little bit big. You probably want to separate that, but those have specific goals, things you're working at. And then microcycles are usually like your week plan. And so each of those is going to have slightly different things you're working on, things you're focused with your training on. And, they kind of build, but you start with the big picture and then divide it up based on your schedule and, how it fits into your life.
So you've got your A race now on the calendar. Ideally, is there a certain amount of weeks or month that, depending, I guess that's probably dependent on where your starting fitness is and the distance you're trying to do. But for a macro cycle, is there a ideal?
I don't think there's an ideal. I don't think you can go. You would not. You want to look at a macro cycle like for an Olympic athlete, their macro cycle might be 4 years. It literally might be. Michael Phelps's macro cycles might have been 4 years. You finish Beijing and you start thinking about London, and everything is building towards that. So, is there an ideal? I don't know.
How about in just the universe of the average age grouper?
So I think that goes to, if you're talking about triathlon, goes to the season. So if you're going to prefer to race hot summer, some people, want to race Placid or whatever, then they're going to say July is my A race, and they're going to, pick a macro cycle from January, February to do that race. Something like that.
Is there too small of a macro cycle? Let's define that.
Yeah.
Obviously, like a day.
Anything less than 3 months is too short.
Anything less than 3 months.
Yeah, I think it'd be really hard to do anything of value if you're new, and we're going to get into some of the different like block periodization and stuff like that. Focuses a little bit differently on the way that looks. But, a standard linear periodization is 12 weeks would be very short. But when you look at like some of the online marathon plans, those are like 16 to 18 kind of weeks, so.
But that type of plan, is it getting someone into their peak condition, peak form, or is it just you'll be able to complete it?
Peak in that time frame.
Well, they have, and there's a few books for triathlon too. They have like, this is the plan if you just want to finish, and this is the plan for the same amount of time if you're going to, race it or whatever. So they usually have like 3 plans.
Yeah.
That they kind of say pick one and see what you can do, and one will be like less training, one will be more.
Yeah, I kind of I hone in on like 26 weeks as kind of a.
He just divides the year by 2.
Is that half a year? Oh, that is half a year. No, so that gives you, and we're going to talk about
what
kind
about
of
6 months.
That works too. My head works in weeks because of the mesocycles are sort of base build special, I call it specialty, or, like focused on your race, and then a 2-week taper. So it's 8, 8, 8, 8, and then 2 weeks of tapering. So that gives you 26. So yeah, 6 months. And I think that's like a good kind of number. If you have longer than that, great. Longer is better.
Yeah.
Again, would you say that would be like...
So get your head out of the gutter, James. We're talking about triathlon.
No, I was choking on my drink.
Yeah.
On the wrong tube.
Please eat your
would that
cherry.
be like race specific as far as distance or?
Yeah. So the idea behind periodization is you start very general with your fitness, and then you get more and more and more specific as you get closer to your event. So that last, for me, like 6 to 8 week block is really focused on taking the fitness you built in the first 2 blocks and honing it in on what your event is going to look like.
Let's back it up though.
Okay, sorry.
Because we got to start with, and what's the first part of the training cycle?
The macrocycle?
The
base.
What do you mean?
the base building.
Well, do we-
sure.
okay,
We already
so
went
I'm
to
gonna-
the cycle. Okay.
I'm going to start before that then. That's not on your notes.
That's the drinking
Even
one.
before.
Yeah.
Let's
it's
see.
a-
I didn't look at the notes.
It's on
carefully
page
enough.
negative one.
It's the drinking phase. The fully rest phase.
Or
So you're
The couch phase.
and that's
Yes.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's the first phase of your training cycle needs to be the recovery phase. That happens from when your prior A race was until you start your plan. And that is a chance to recharge your mental battery, maybe earn some brownie points at home, take care of stuff you've put off in the previous season because you just were too busy training or whatever.
I cleaned my house for the first time today in like a year.
Right.
Because
There
I
you
had
go.
time. I was like, oh, wow, this is what I used to do.
I was cleaning too. I'm like, I got to pace myself because if my husband realizes how much I can actually get done
Yeah.
when I have energy.
Yeah. He's going to be like, nope.
My racing days might be
racing
over.
for you. So I think you have to start there. You have to give back fitness to make future gains. It's absolutely necessary. People who try and keep the same, like just keep it rolling from one race at the end of the season and like jump, like it happens to everybody. Either you have a good race and you're like, oh, I'm on top of the world. Let's keep this going. Let's go. You're going to burn out. Or the people who have a bad race and are like, oh, I need to work out extra hard now because that was so crappy. Like you still need a rest. It's like one step back so you can take 2 steps forward the next year.
So what does that look like?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
let's define rest.
We're officially calling it the house cleaning phase.
I like that.
Let's define rest though and recovery.
Okay, so
after your A race
post race, I'm taking 2 weeks off
of nothing, doing nothing.
I mean, like I wanted to go ride on Saturday. I just got a crappy night's sleep, so I was like, I'm not going to go ride. This weekend is busy, so like I might go get a run in while I drop Logan off early for his swim meet. I might go run.
And chances are you won't.
You're right, and I'm not going to feel bad about it one bit.
Yeah.
So it's take what you need. Now, I wouldn't say you take 2 months off or 3 months of literally doing nothing. But I think 2 weeks after a hard season is 100% acceptable. Of literally, you could, if you just want to lay on your couch for 2 weeks, that's perfectly fine. If you were my athlete and you did that, we would not have any conversations.
Now, it's okay to do like unplanned, unstructured stuff.
Yeah.
In that.
But I do want it to be like if I'm coaching you, I want that to be very, very easy.
Yeah. All just zone 2 or 1.
0. Yeah.
Zone 0.
Yeah.
Just think
Zone
about
0.
I
working
look
out.
at it, well, so I agree, but I also look at it a little differently. During your cycles that you're building and open for, correction and argument and everything else. When you're in your cycles and you're building and you've got your plan, you're piling on. So the off season doesn't necessarily feel for me like it has to be zone 1 or 2, but it gives a lot more time to recover or absorb it. So like you do a workout, it's hard. You don't have to do anything for a few days and just kind of like you still had a hard workout, let's say Wednesday, right? But you're not going to go take an easy ride on Saturday, but you're not doing something Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then building and letting your body try to absorb all of that. You can have a hard workout Wednesday and then, kind of take it easy for a few days or do nothing or whatever, have a couple of easy workouts.
Yeah.
That to me is also like fine, right?
Yeah.
Because I think, you could kind of have building some stuff in there, some strength, whatever it is, right? But, or you could sit on the couch.
Yeah.
I think for me, since you asked,
Yvonne, what do you? How do you define your recovery?
I know towards the end of the season, I always get like anxious about jumping into different things, just moving different ways, and I generally like to stay active in more of that fitness part. So like with triathlons, I realize that it's that more specific type of training for performance, and it's not necessarily fitness in the forefront, but then I start to think of like activity in the fitness sense. So, but what's nice about it is like doing things, and I realized that, James finagled me into taking some CrossFit classes this week and just doing some activity. I'm like, my body was like, oh, this is a lot. And then like today I was like, you know what, I think I need to give myself a rest. So giving myself that permission to just say like, you know what, you don't need it. It's right on the schedule. I continued my coaching plan just to stay accountable so that I don't get too far away from it. But at the same time, like if I miss a workout here and there, it's totally fine.
It's not like you have strict 70.3 training still going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of, I'm same page. Like great that you can still have a hard workout, whatever, CrossFit or bike, and then just like, all right, tomorrow I don't have to do anything or do it easy or whatever. Like you don't have to.
It feels like less obligatory. It's just like
it should be.
I want to do it because it's fun, but if I don't feel like it,
I'm not disagreeing with you guys at all. I think I'm separating it out from like literally the 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The longer the race, I think the longer that period of like just chill the hell out. Needs to be. So for me, 2 weeks after a 70.3 of like a season building towards it, then it's time for me to start thinking about doing the stuff you guys are talking about. So I kind of call that like after that, forced rest. I like to think of it like a prep period and like, okay, now we're building towards actually starting training again. And that's going to include for me, like those kind of things you guys are talking about, some strength, get back in the gym and start lifting and get over the muscle soreness and stuff when there's no, hard bike that I have to worry about afterwards and stuff like that. But that's like, I think there needs to be a legit break, and then you can start doing that fun stuff. And like, it's coffee shop rides, it's attacking each other up the hills and, stuff like that. It's going for a trail run where like breathing through your eyeballs on a steep section uphill and stuff like that's okay. But like you said, most of it should be unbelievably easy.
It was really nice, our ride last weekend.
Coffee was good.
Weather was perfect.
Yeah, chill.
Just
I think
slow pace.
It almost felt like too easy.
Riding to just ride.
Too easy.
Just riding to ride.
But we should note your calorie consumption should match your rest,
I think,
which is say as I do as I say, not as I do, right? Because like that's the other key thing to dial in. Killing
you're not
yourself.
burning the same number of calories.
You
don't need to eat as much.
No.
But that was a nice chill ride, and I think actually there is something to this weather. I actually like the cooler rides and the runs. Yeah.
Not my favorite.
Yeah. No. And weekend trail runs are, I think, back on the menu. It's just, who cares about pace? Just be out in the wilderness.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and it's a good time to work on limiters. It's a good time to work on like skill-based stuff. So if swimming's not your strong thing, then like, spend 4 or 5 days in the pool, like every week and just.
But I think of that as part of your training, like spending 5 straight days in a pool.
Yeah, but yes.
Very
but like,
what if you have like fun with it?
You get very pruny.
Yeah,
but like
stayed under.
when once you start your plan, and if your plan is to get you to, race fitness by the day of the race, like it's better to take care of those like if they're skill based limiters, right? If you have a problem in the pool with skill, then work on it when there's no other things you have to worry about. Work on it when you can say like, okay, literally the only thing I'm going to do for the next 3 or 4 weeks is swim 5 days a week.
Yeah, but is it?
It's not like a 3,000 meter interval swim. It's like just being comfortable
Yeah.
with the water,
It's-
doing some
yeah.
drills, like just having fun and
Okay.
getting in there.
But let's say you do have a limiter and you didn't fix it. Now you're in your training plan.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you rather have an athlete spend a couple of weeks then inside the plan working on that limiter because they can get, let's say their feet are sinking.
Mm-hmm.
They can get their feet to stop sinking rather than say, okay, well, you had your time to work on your limiter, so let's just stick to the plan and, you continue to swim this way. So
Yeah,
I'd
but
rather
we're-
have them spend that time that,
Yeah, but you're talking about
fixing it.
two non-ideals, right? You're talking about coming up with a solution to a problem that could have been solved prior.
Yeah.
Like my solution is solve it when's the best time to work on those things?
Sure.
During the off season.
Yeah.
When-
But if you didn't, I think it's important then to fix it too.
Well, yeah, you still.
You still have to work on it, right? Because you
Yeah.
didn't do them when you should have.
The problem is you're going to have less time to work on it once you're in your plan.
Yeah.
Because you have to
Because
work on
that's
the
going
other
to throw
sports.
It's
everything
going to throw
else.
everything out of the
Yeah.
in the plan off,
Yeah.
sure, but you should still fix it.
Yeah, you should. But at
Yeah.
that point, it is what it is. Like,
No,
No,
it's,
you
I
should still
understand what
fix
both
it.
of you are saying. Like, yes, you should fix it. Yes, you should have fixed it 4 weeks prior.
If you have to fix it, you have to fix it.
Yes, it has to.
If you have an option to take time that you're not under the gun, like I know just as an athlete that to try to like fit in an extra swim day
Mhm.
because I need to fix my swimming, whereas I can just spend 30 minutes in the pool every day and just do a couple of drills that will help me be more efficient when I am training, then yeah, that makes total sense.
I get what you're saying. Like, yes, if it's a real problem, then it should get fixed.
Right.
Period. However you can fix it.
Yeah. There's definitely times during my training where I'm like, oh, I wish I could just like have fun in the water and just
Mhm.
like work
splash
on.
around.
Split splash.
Just want to
Well, yeah, just like be like
Cannonball.
more like comfortable. Like I didn't really use my
Yeah.
snorkel too much because
Uh-huh.
it wasn't part of my training. Like and I was at that point it was kind of like how I swam was just how I was going to swim. I wasn't going to change anything right
Yeah.
before a race.
And
So now it's like I can even within my plan start incorporating things that it's like if there's a drill on my program that I'm maybe like, I don't really need that, but I can really use help with this, and that's something I can
Mhm.
throw in there and not feel like I'm not doing something.
Yeah. One of the things, James, we got to this year was a point where the volume was in a good enough spot. They could absorb, they were in good enough shape where I programmed the recovery, the day off typically was what, Mondays,
Monday.
right? So I would put in a air quotes optional
Yeah.
swim and zero time, zero distance requirements. Just literally, like you're saying, go in and try and frolic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say like you guys did that more times than not.
I don't think I ever missed an optional swim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you miss
And-
a frolic?
And you leave, you stretch out, you feel good. Like there's no, I'm not programming workouts or anything like that. It's just, they know the drills to work on. They've figured out stuff that makes them feel better in the water and they went and did it. Like, I think those, but you need to be at a certain point where you can handle that extra, where
Yeah.
you don't actually need a true day off, feet up recovery day, and that you have to get to that point. So
All right, so we're off the couch.
we're off the couch, right?
Build.
No.
Base.
All
Yeah,
about
so
that base.
Well,
this-
did we cover all of the cycles? Like we talked about the macrocycle, right? Did we talk about the mesocycle and the microcycle, or we're going to talk about that once we?
well, I mean, I said like macrocycles the whole year. Mesocycle are these base build. They're called a bunch of different things. A bunch of
Yeah.
different
Taper.
coaches, huh?
Base build taper.
Yeah, base build, peak, taper, like a whole bunch of different
base
things.
build race specific.
That's what I call them. Every
Oh.
coach has different stuff they call them.
Right.
I wrote a blog a couple months ago called it Base Build and Taper.
Did you? Nice.
BBT.
Yeah. BBT.
Okay.
So those are
I
your.
guess you didn't read it.
No, because I think of taper as the 2 weeks into the.
Yeah, but
race.
like
I
if you
think
go by
race
the
specific.
triathlon training Bible or the cyclist training Bible, they call that the race or
Stop.
the peak phase.
It's the Bible.
Stop.
The peak phase, they call that.
Thanks.
So whatever. So those are your mesocycles, and then your microcycle. Microcycles are like week. Most people work on a weekly microcycle.
Yep.
You know, some people. I think like back a year ago, we talked about going
10
like
day.
a 10-day microcycle, but it's hard if you work a normal job.
Yeah, I feel like when we had Matt Schuster on there, we should have asked him, because I know he does some of his long runs and rides
Well, that's
midweek.
just because he could.
Yeah, but like
Yeah, he
He's
does it.
still doing the 7
But he's still on a
days.
7-day
But he seems like someone who could possibly do
A 10 day.
potentially. But I
a
mean,
9 or 10 day.
You'd have to talk to his coach.
Yeah,
the question is like,
I'll
why?
talk to him.
If he can handle
Okay.
if he can handle the training in a 7-day micro, then there's no need to go to a 10. The
Yeah.
10 is like a benefit. Like I think for the aging athlete, like
Yeah,
I
gives
like
you
to think
extra.
of like the retired athlete. Like
Oh, good. He's looking at you.
no, I'm looking in a mirror. I'm looking at me. I'm like, when can I
We're
retire?
all in that boat.
Right? It's like I think a
There's a boat.
retired athlete, like you get older, it takes a little longer to recover. Like a longer microcycle is probably better.
Oh, yeah. Okay. 20 day.
It's funny though, in the triathlon Bible book, that what's his name, Jeff Friel or Joseph Friel? I forget
Well,
his-
there's two Friels. There's Dirk and Joe.
Joe. I
They're
think it was
father
Joe.
and son. And I don't know
Oh.
who wrote the book.
He talks about how, oh yeah, like the 9-day training cycle is great for the retired athletes. So I talk about that at 50 and faster. Like 50, how many people get to retire at 50
triathletes,
right now?
rich ass triathletes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was like, wow, 50?
Yeah.
I'm just 5 years away from retiring.
Yeah, you don't think that's not in your 5-year plan?
Not if I keep doing triathlons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, what is the cycle of 3-week build, 1 week taper? Is that a microcycle?
you mean 3-week build, like 3-week loading, 1-week recovery?
Yeah.
That's usually that would be a mesocycle. Each of those 4-week blocks
So there's
would
a
be
couple of
a
mesocycles.
mesocycle. But
One
but
is-
some people might also think of, if you're doing 8 weeks of build, that would have 2 of those
Mhm.
mesocycles in it.
Build
Right.
1, build 2,
Right.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Build
one way
3.
to think about it.
Mhm.
or base 1, base 2. Sorry, I keep
Right.
saying build.
Yeah. So we're still in
I just want
base.
to build.
You just want to build? Yeah.
I just want to build.
So
I didn't look at this, but he's got like 4 phases on here. Base, build, peak.
Because like the
race,
peak and
pace.
race together is really
yeah, peak
one.
peak is like the taper. Peak they're talking about. Their peak they're calling what I call race specific. And then race is the taper phase.
No, race, not according to this.
Oh,
definition.
tapering. Yeah, I don't know. Chat GPT. Come on with your notes.
Build, peak, race.
Yeah. That's why I think of it as base, build,
taper.
no, man.
Base, build, race, taper.
No.
No, not race. Race like
Race
specific.
specifics.
I guess I gotta come up with a better name before I write my book.
I like that. Race.
Trainer Road, which is like a pretty popular with a lot of cyclists. It's like a online platform that has training plans and stuff. They call it base, build, specialty. And
That's a good
the
one.
specialty is where you really hone in on
Specificity.
the specificity of
Specificity.
your event.
It's a tough word.
BBS.
BBS. So and then you've got taper after that.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, James.
Well, how much base do we need?
The more the,
The
better.
more. Oh,
Need all
never-
that base.
Sorry.
He's quick to the draw.
Yeah.
I've had more to drink.
So I remember I really enjoy base training.
Yeah.
It's nice. And I remember I told Greg when we were going to do Eagle Man, I was like, I'm fine with just doing base the entire time. Like, I don't even need to go into
Mhm.
build. Or I didn't know at the time what the phases were, but I was like, I like base. Can I just do base for the entire? I don't know when we started, February maybe, or
Somewhere around there, February,
Yeah,
March.
base is nice.
but he didn't let me do that.
Why do you like base so much?
It's just
2 weeks
Zone
after is
2.
better.
just nothing really stressing the heart. Long, easy stuff.
Yeah.
It's fun. Base is fun.
Tis true.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. That's true. Yeah, it shouldn't hurt.
But
if you're doing
ideally,
it right.
over a longer period of time, years, you can build a gigantic base.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that was my ultimate goal was like, can my base just get faster over time? Like,
Yeah.
whatever my pace at base becomes just gets faster. It might be
that's
slower.
the whole goal, right?
Yeah.
Like every year
For
you
sure.
just get
Yeah.
better at where you're at.
Just the long game.
Right.
Mhm.
And I mean, like if you if you took the real long game, and that's where like the Olympians and stuff like that, if you look at that kind of long-term thing, if somebody came to you and was like, listen, I have no end goal in mind, you would do base until you stopped seeing improvement.
You would do base. But, okay.
Right.
But that would be like,
So you don't need to
hopefully
build
never.
anything into your
you're
your
eventually
base
going to
cycles.
see plateaus.
Mm.
And the thing with that is if you see these plateaus, then it doesn't take too much to kind of blow past them. Like a little bit of intensity could get you past it. And then so you do that little bit of intensity and you see improvement.
That's no longer base.
And then go right back to base.
And then go right back to that new base. You know, so you see improvement quick.
It's
And
different program. Base, build, base.
Yeah.
Base, build, base. You have to build.
Yeah.
But that is like in the real world, I don't know how many people have the patience for that.
That's
To base, build, base.
If
If they're not going to race, they can do base, build,
and that's
base.
what I'm saying. I don't know how many people have the patience to say like, okay, I'm in this for the long haul.
Yeah, it's like,
I've got a 5-year plan. I want to be the best athlete I can be in 5 years.
yeah.
And I don't care what happens between then and now.
just tell them the best athlete they were was 20 years ago. And then you just move on from there.
You have to be willing to like basically underperform
Mm-hmm.
for like 5 years.
I'm all
but that
about that.
one
Yeah, I
race.
think I've hit
That's-
that.
yeah.
Well, but
I've hit
not
the
one race.
target
because-
on the
But what
dartboard.
event, like you could race, but like it'd have to be, the races would be underwhelming because you wouldn't be giving it your all. You'd be going into them and be like, I don't have that top gear, but I can still race.
Yeah.
You know, and like that, like what I'm saying is that's a really hard person to find,
Yeah.
you know? So
I think I
in
am that
reality,
person.
you think so?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
did that for
I
like
am.
5 years.
I do think this year, so the first year I did it, and I'm only comparing 2 years, but first year I did it, I wasn't sure where my triathlon career would take me.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the year off, I thought, you know, am I really into this or not? Then this year, I think because I had that initial base, I saw the improvements, and to be able to keep some of that and build off of what I had the year prior,
Yeah.
I was like super excited about that. So, and I'm not a fast triathlete anyway. So I just feel like for me, not because I'm going to podium or anything like that, but
Yeah.
for me,
you
I
have.
feel like the
Multiple times.
the most gains I'll get is not going to be anytime soon.
Mhm.
This was the first year that I'm like, you know what? I think I do want to
Just keep
stick with
doing
this for the next couple of years
Yeah.
and see how good I can get.
Right. And that's one of those, like, if you're okay with that, then the gains that really come to this, like service with a smile. The gains that come from the base type of training just like keep getting better and better and better. So there's really no reason not to keep doing it, except for people like to have a race every year, and
Mhm.
people like to like feel like they've prepared for that race and really do a good job at that race. And so it's about finding that balance of like, here's what I want to do, here's how I should do it. And, you know, you have to kind of make concessions to do that.
Yeah.
Pretty sure, unbeknownst to me, I did it for like 6, 7, 8 years.
You
Yeah.
think so? But like, you
I
think
do.
you did base? Like
Yeah.
you were just chilling at zone
I was
2?
building base, which is, again, I'm just being brutally honest, like, which is why, like, after the race now, a couple days, I'm good.
Yeah.
I think that's because, like, for years, and it was because, I will say this, it's because life things were making, like, that the life was a priority rather than training. So I was doing the training,
Mhm.
but there was a lot more like having kids and other things that just made sure that life was taking a priority rather
Yeah.
than base. And then whatever races I had, like, yeah, you show up to those races, but it was never race specific and pushing it. It was only
Mhm.
in the last 3-4 years that it became more race
Right.
specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
So
Go ahead.
everyone out there, you know, some of them just should think about, like, what are they really doing? Are they really just kind of like building base because of their
See, I
life
think a lot of people.
choices or their-
It's gonna sound. I think a lot of people think they're building base and just are working too hard.
maybe.
Want to just take a pause and we can get this taken care of, and then
I think we're good.
It's all
James is going to
taken
start
care of.
stirring again. And
Gonna-
Do you mind
wow, you want
squirting
some
me some syrup?
syrup?
Some syrup.
Syrup.
Syrup. It's giving me like anxiety because this is my nutrition on my run.
You feel like you're back on the
Oh, whoa.
back on the course.
Yeah.
By the way, just so people have any idea what the hell we're doing right here, we're having drinks. We're drinking old fashions. We got
Trying to eat these cherries.
trying to eat this jug of cherries that we got down in Wilmington to celebrate with, in our drinks down there. And we
Yeah, the shop we went to, we're like, "Do you have cherries?" Like, no, sorry, someone else asked. We don't have them. And then Yvonne finds them, and then it's like the largest jar of cherries ever.
It's like Costco-sized cherries.
yeah, I mean we've got
We should
almost 5 pounds worth of maraschino cherries. 4 pounds, 10 ounces.
And then James is like, "You gotta buy that."
How much did that tub of cherries
It was
cost?
like $20.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
the same. It's crazy. The Luxardo cherries.
They're pretty good. They're big.
Yeah,
They're
they're okay. I've gotten so snobby
I mean,
with my
I like-
cherries because
I
I
like
bought those
those.
Luxardo ones.
Right.
yeah.
They're so good.
Are those
So-
those like really pruny cherries?
No, they're
Oh.
just, but they're in like a thick, rich syrup, not like a
different
red-
texture.
Yeah, they're definitely different.
I like those
texture.
like black cherries. I don't know what they're
They're
called.
dark. They're darker than
Maybe
these.
it's that one.
Black
yeah.
cherries.
I don't know. They're like they look like prunes or something.
Oh, like Boylan's black cherry soda.
Mm.
I might have to cut this part out.
Anyway,
So
So what I was saying is, I think a lot of people so what you're saying, Rich. Now, I'm not questioning what you've done in the past, but I think a lot of people think they're doing base and are working too hard.
I might have been working too hard at times, but there was also, I know, years where I couldn't work that hard.
Mhm.
I just didn't have it. Didn't have the time. Didn't have
But
the.
okay, but when you say work hard, do you just mean like time? You didn't have the time? Because what I hear
And then when I was doing the workouts, they weren't really like
hard.
they weren't. So like if you look at what they should be in terms of race specific, in terms of build, there was no real build. There was no real race specific.
Right,
It
but-
was
Random.
just
But were you just going
Random.
out? You were going out and you were like, oh, I only have an hour today. Let's smash myself for an hour.
no. I only have an hour today, so let's do an hour. And it wasn't smashing yourself.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay, so but I think a lot of people have that mindset,
Right.
and so that's not build.
I think that's
Or that's
different.
not base.
No,
Yeah.
right. I think the people that are just kind of out there to just work out.
Yeah.
That's different.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree.
Right. So ideally, the base period is I like to think like a pyramid. So there's 3 corners to the pyramid. There's endurance, there's speed, and there's strength. And the base period is all about building general fitness in those 3 categories. So general endurance means you can do things for a long period of time. So whatever you have to do to be able to do those skills, those sports for a long period of time, you can build that general endurance on the bike, running, swimming, hiking, trail running, Nordic skiing,
Moving.
whatever, moving, right? Bring your heart rate up into slightly elevated. You're going to build general endurance.
are we building aerobic capacity?
You're building the low end of your aerobic curve. You're working below that first lactate threshold. You're just kind of you're bringing your heart rate up to 60% of max.
So not looking at any anaerobic stuff.
Nope.
No muscular endurance.
Nope.
Just easy base.
Easy base, right?
I love it.
That's the endurance corner of the triangle.
Is it easy base or is base supposed to be easy?
Okay.
That's so deep.
Base.
She came in hot today.
Another way to think about base, this is the way I'm trying to explain it, is general fitness development. So general endurance is one aspect, one corner of the base pyramid. Speed, general speed is the other aspect. I'm going to hit you.
I'm envisioning the thing.
Yeah, I'll draw it for you.
For those visual people.
Now I'm
General.
looking at I want to know what
Right.
the top is now.
Okay, so
Endurance.
endurance
It's
is
just in
one
his
corner.
pyramid.
General speed.
Speed. So how do you build speed? You do stuff fast, but you don't have to do stuff fast for long periods of time. So that's like you're going for a run and you're doing strides, or you're doing fast spin ups on the bike, maybe like some really like low power but really fast cadence sprints on the bike. You're developing speed. And then the third part is strength. You're building general strength. Just get strong.
And during the base, this is where we can actually be in the gym,
right?
Doing strength workouts, trying to build it up. It's not going to interfere with anything now because we are just doing general everything.
I mean, I think strength as a whole is a separate episode, but I think, yes, but that doesn't mean that you get away from strength once you're done with base.
And that's where I'm about to,
yes.
right? So base is building the general corners of that pyramid, right? Speed, strength, endurance. And then as the season progresses, as you move through your different mesocycles, you become more and more and more specific with those same 3 corners. You still build endurance, but you build endurance that's more specific to your event. You still build strength, but it's more specific to your event. You still build speed, but it's more specific to your event. Until you get to, those 3 corners have kind of coalesced at what do you need to be able to do on race day from a endurance, speed, and strength standpoint to get through your race effectively. And if you do all those 3 things, you build from general to specific. That's kind of the gist of periodization.
So when you're in base, though, and we're talking about, let's say, weekly training volume, and do you try to hit your ideal training volume at low intensity, or are you at a lower volume first and you're going to ramp that up through base as well?
So that's, so you take your whole base period to get to the point where your volume is, sort of maximized.
Okay. When you say your volume is maximized, so in your base period, let's say you have a 140 race, right?
Mm-hmm. A full Ironman for those metrically, or is that, imperially challenged?
Okay. And
wow.
so, but like I would say that for the your base to you have to depend on the athlete, because if they don't have that time to give you at base, then you're not going to be able to effectively take that base and build that time into it.
Okay, but again, I think we need to talk about ideal, and then from ideal is real world, and how do you adapt that to specific case
real
studies,
world, right? So,
but we haven't even talked about general yet. Like, we haven't talked about ideal yet.
I mean, let's lay out what base looks like.
Well, we just did talk about ideal. You said you build base to ideal full time training, and I think many people may not have that. So then they have to work within the confines of their...
No, their full ideal, their full volume that they can do.
Okay.
Not because if we just said full volume, then...
Well, so full volume for 140.6, it's a lot of volume. And I don't know that people just start at base doing all that volume right away.
I think if you're committing to that type of race, you got to find that time. Otherwise...
I think the volume comes later.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I think I don't think Greg's arguing that.
Don't. I think...
So you think you're having your 18-hour week in your base in the first
if you want an ideal program,
from week 1?
Well, we just said it's not ideal. You said it's ideal to you,
so
because you guys
are saying
time.
The same thing. It's just
I think so too. I just think we're kind of like
Greg is saying by the end of your base, you're at volume.
So here's my general training philosophy. You build consistency, then you build volume, then you add intensity to that. Okay. So you have to do those 3 things, and I don't think you can cut corners there. I think if you can't build consistency, then it's like there is no point to adding volume.
Right. So you have consistency, but if you're in February and your volume is at 18 hours a week, I think you might run into some trouble. And
but he's not saying that you're going to be at 18 in February. What if you're...
Because I don't know that, like you and me, I don't know that we can handle 18 hours a week. Right. So I don't think we get to that number.
Right. But that's kind of because I wasn't working ideal. I was working like...
but that is ideal for you, Rich.
Right.
You're saying ideal. Yeah, but when you say ideal, I'm not talking about some mystical athlete who doesn't exist. I'm talking about your ideal. So if you can get to 15 hours a week at the end of base, okay, then we can start sprinkling intensity into that 15 hours during your build and specialty phase. But if you can only get to 12 hours at the end of base, what the hell are we doing? If we're just like, how are we going to get to 18 hours with intensity 6 months, 2 months later, 3 months later?
You make the base bigger.
Yeah.
And I think what happens if like you can't get there, you have to sacrifice what's going to happen in your build and your race specificity stage. You're just going to have to extend out base and then get where you can get, but you can't rush.
Yeah,
adding in intensity.
Yeah,
and I think that's what happens. Most people follow a cookie cutter plan, and you say like, "Oh, base is over, time to move on."
Yep.
But if there's more room to grow with base, then grow with it because it's easy. It's not as stressful to the body. There's not as much chance of injury. Like, do it. And now, Rich, to your point, like, fine, you get to 13 hours, and you're like, okay, 13 hours easy right now is as much as I can give you. Cool, that's the end of it. Then we move on. Now we start sprinkling in intensity. Fine.
Right.
But next year, maybe you can handle 15 hours.
Right.
And the year after, maybe you can handle 16 hours.
Yep.
And that's where the year after year progression comes from.
Pull out my divorce papers right now.
So basically, you're looking for
Basically,
the total amount that of training that you're going to need for the week. So let's say like for a half Ironman to keep it smaller, you're going to need this amount.
Yeah,
of
I don't
hours.
like to put numbers of hours on it because it's going to be, like Rich said, individual to the person. It's like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Right? So if you say to me, I only want to do 10 hours a week, then we get to 10 hours. And if we keep seeing improvement at base with 10 hours a week, we stay there. And once we stop seeing improvement with 10 hours a week of base, we move on to the next phase.
So it's just like finding that, being honest with the amount of time that you have for training, building the base within that amount that you can commit to. Once you have that and established like a baseline, then you can add the intensity. Yeah. And then you can add.
Right. Because why rush the intensity if you're still getting improvements from the easier work in base?
And I think to Greg's point about building consistency, like if the goal is 10 hours a week and you're like doing nothing right now, it's hard to just go from 0 to 10 and then be able to sustain that again for another week. The goal would be like, hey, you're going to have to work out 5 to 6 days a week when you're doing this. So let's just say, can you give me half an hour for the first week every day or for 5 or 6 days, and just set that as routine, and you just get that. And then it's like, all right, now we're going to bump you up to 45 minutes and then just keep building. So eventually you're at the point where like you're working out every day. They say it's like if you do something for 3 weeks, it becomes routine. So when you get to that point, now it's routine. You're used to the motions. Then you can start adding in more time, and then you get to that point where you're at that level where, all right, now I'm consistently at 10 hours. You've handled it. Your body's absorbed it. Let's make it harder now.
Right.
Got it. All right. So
if we're doing Nuga at the end of September next year.
Oh my God, are we already like making little like code words?
That's what he's calling it. Yeah.
Nuga?
Someone else
like
called
chatty?
it
Chatty.
Someone called it else something,
chatty?
I think, on the board. I forget what it's called. They made it on the Chattanooga board. I think they call it Chuga. I was like, I don't like Chuga.
Well, so Chattanooga is a big train town. So
I'm not sure if I like Nuga.
Nuga.
For
like
those listening,
Nougat.
it's a race end of September of 2024.
So if we have September 29th, Nuga, 2024, could we do 6 months of base? Can we do base from January into June?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, realistically though, because you already have a race on the schedule for June, so you can't just do base until then.
No, I'll do base through the whole thing. I don't care.
But did you throw out that yes because he didn't say
with one
anything?
caveat.
Hold on, because he didn't say anything about doing like a Western Mass race or anything like that. Because then that base.
No, because I know him. I know his MO, and he would be okay with that. The one caveat is if you stop improving from the base, then something needs to change.
Okay.
Right? Like so.
But we can ride base for.
You could. The problem is like and we're gonna get to this eventually. We're at an hour in, but like
We haven't even touched, like, we've
No,
sidetracked so far.
this is gonna be a two-parter,
two-parter, right? Has to be. I mean, the
We're gonna,
Say
we have
we,
to
but
we
I
have to
feel like it
periodize
was you.
this episode.
right? So I don't even remember what I was gonna say. You have to
With his base building
said you
for
know
6
him.
months.
there needs to be progressive overload. You know,
Yes.
so there needs to be within the cycle. You need to be making it more and more difficult. Difficult from either consistency, duration, or intensity. And during base, it's probably going to be duration. So like like let's say we get to 12 hours of pretty, simple base work,
hmm
and we can't find any more time in a week. Then at 12 hours, like you're going to plateau at that point.
So I then have
If
to
that
do
happens-
intensity.
If that happens before June, then we have to start earlier.
Unless I'm bump my duration up to 15 hours or something.
Unless you are right, unless you find that more duration.
But you say that, and I think, in a fantasy land, it's like, oh, I'd want 6 months of base. I think your body naturally craves
Mhm.
that.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
No, I don't like. I
Yeah,
don't
I
like
think
training
it's
to
also
hurt.
not taking
100%
into
do.
effect Western Mass or any
100%.
of the other races he
But
wants
outside
to
of
do.
that, even if all James had on the calendar was chatty,
Nuga.
Nuga, I think you
Ooga
wouldn't help
shaka,
yourself.
ooga.
Like you naturally need that next step,
I don't like training to hurt
but you do.
because I have to follow my plan.
No. There's been times, and I've been witness where there has been nothing, pushing you to push yourself, and you've opted
Yeah.
to push yourself.
Right, like
because
this
you
week
felt
when you
it.
sent us the leaderboard from CrossFit.
Yeah, there was.
Well, because now it's just
What
for
you're
fun.
saying is he's a total liar, which I agree with.
100%.
I agree with.
100%. I don't want him like.
Call him out. Call him out right now.
You guys don't. I don't like to train hard.
Stop. He's such a liar.
My body will try to find the most efficient way of doing something.
Mhm.
He says that,
It's,
and then
However,
have to
I am
convince
very compliant. So if I have
nobody
a workout,
made you get to that leaderboard. Nobody complied you to get to the top of that leaderboard. Nobody. 0 people.
Not,
I ended up.
not the
I ended
top
up second though. I ended up second because someone else.
I
came
mean,
in
top
later.
top 3, right? Whatever, top 5, top of the leaderboard. There was 100 people, 15 people. You made it to the top. Why? All right,
Because
you
I
got
was
called
working
out.
out.
Yeah, okay.
But this is
But
not
you
part
don't
of the
like it.
plan.
You
That's
don't like
that's
it.
just this.
it just
me
might be
having
you.
fun.
It just might be like this intrinsic,
We digress.
just basically with you performing the way that you would perform. If Greg was watching your numbers and saying, "Yeah, you can't stay like this. You have to do more." Like that's just what's going to make that
Well,
shift.
I want to improve, just in the easiest way possible. Like,
I
if I
want
can
to
do
do nothing and improve. That's what I'm trying
No,
to
he
do.
doesn't. That's the thing. It's not that he wants to do nothing.
no.
The real crux of this is we are all limited by our time.
Yeah.
Right. We're not able to devote 20 hours a week to this.
Nor do I.
But
want
we're
to.
all also athletes,
See,
so it's
you
like
don't want to. Like if you had nothing to do,
Okay, maybe if I had nothing to do.
that's what I'm saying.
Fine.
Like
But we don't have that luxury.
You're right. We don't have that luxury. But if I had nothing to do, I would literally love to be able to train 20 or 25 hours a week.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, it would take me a couple of years to get up to the point where I could handle that volume. And that is literally at the level James is talking about of, 120 heart rate and just easy.
Okay. We've taken this digression too far.
Yeah, okay.
Let's
And this
reel
is
it
the
back.
reason why we have periodization is to
Very good.
break up the year into these manageable chunks so that we can actually see some improvement from base, move on when we get to our kind of limits. Right?
And base can be multiple bases, right? Like base 1, base 2, base 3.
Yeah, so you might break up your base and each one is getting a little bit, so base 1, you're just getting back into training. It might be, we talk about 80-20 a lot on here. It might be 95-5 in base 1, and then it might be 90-10 in base 2 and 85-15. And literally I'm not sitting there with a calculator trying to figure out percentages, but to give you an idea of like the intensity is really low at the beginning. And it's becoming you're adding more to it as you go.
It's like cooking. Like, you just do by taste. You sprinkle in whatever. It's
100%.
it's about 80-20.
And that's how where they got these numbers from. Nobody was doing the math until
All right.
after the fact.
I think so. You touched upon progressive overload. You have to change something, either frequency, intensity, duration. Safe, what I've heard is 10% increases, rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Agree, disagree?
Disagree.
Disagree.
Yeah, I think for running, you have to kind of
Yeah.
see.
I think adding a percentage is not the best way to think, because like
Yeah.
if you're, let's say you're starting running and you haven't
Mhm.
run before and you can do 5 miles a week, 10% is only 5.5 miles a week. Like at the beginning phases, you can add more than that. At the later phases, you can't. Like what if you're running 100 miles a week?
Then I think you can add 10 miles.
You think so?
If you're at 100 miles,
I think that's a big jump at if you're at 100 miles, because I think at 100 miles, you are close to your limit. And 110 might be 4 or 5 miles over your limit.
but if someone can run 100 miles a week, they didn't just get there from zero. Like
No, but
they
I
got
think,
there 10% at a time.
Think of it like a graph that's like approaching the
Let's
limit.
try it.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Think of a graph that's approaching its limit.
Yeah.
You can't just, it's not a linear thing. It's not a clean line on a graph. You're
Mhm.
you're getting closer and closer to a limit. And you can't just add 10% every week.
This might be something you have to draw for us too.
But you can
Yeah.
also, but you on the flip side, you could say increasing more than 10% would be detrimental.
Potentially, but not at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning you can add more than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like going by percent.
Yeah.
What do you like to go by? Newtons?
No, I just like to see feedback. I like to be logical. So
Feedback.
so like you look at the numbers, you look at what that person could handle. And if it looked like that was so easy, then you can add more percentage. And if it looked like what Greg was saying, you're at the peak, then you're really playing with like 1-2%. You're
Yeah.
playing with almost nothing.
You also have like a number that you're
If-
going for though, because
Mhm.
if your max is going to be a half marathon, then that's where you need to be. You need to be, unless you're a runner and you just like to run for fun.
Yeah, but I mean, the kind of interesting thing, like I agree with you, but then you look at like world-class athletes, right? You look at a world-class 5Ker who might be doing 100 miles a week. And you look at a world-class 10Ker who's probably also doing like, and I mean, these numbers are probably higher, but like, you know, they're doing 100 miles a week too. And a world-class half marathoner is probably also doing 100 miles. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not so much that total volume. They're trying to max out what their body can handle.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess like for me, I'm thinking like as a triathlete, like
Yeah.
that who doesn't really run, I'm just trying to get to where I need to be. Like I want to make sure I can get
yeah.
to that number when I need to. So I just want to make sure that whatever race it is, whether it's a half Ironman or full Ironman, that I can get to that number that I need to get to at the end of it.
Yeah, I think like this year was a good year for like you and Koichi and Marilyn, where like, especially with the running,
Mm-hmm.
you guys got to a point where you at least, I think you over distanced the run at
Yeah.
least once, maybe
lot of
maybe a
our-
couple of times.
Yeah, a lot of those 2-hour
time wise
weekend
for
runs,
sure.
we were getting into like 14, 15 miles
Yeah.
in that time, but still keeping it at whatever, like basically whatever zone, but then adding in speed work in between,
Yeah.
and we would end up over distancing.
And I think that's where like the big improvements can come from is, you know, at the beginner level, or like even I'm at that point too, where especially with the run, where like I didn't get to 13 in any runs, you know, but I got to like 12, right? What was the long? We got to like 12.
Pretty close.
You know, but the time was there. I think the
Yeah.
longest run you and me did was like 2.5, right?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, something like that.
So like the time was there. The distance wasn't quite there, but it's like next year I could see it getting to a point where like I can over distance the runs.
Mm.
The bike I can over distance like 56 miles.
You're
is-
over distancing a marathon for the Nougat race?
yeah, for
Well,
Nuga.
let's not talk about Nuga.
Okay.
But like
oh Lord, it's
if we're
sticking.
talking about
Huh?
just
It's
because you don't like it.
Nougat.
Chatty.
It's like those old horns. Auga, Nuga,
Auga is good. I want to go with Auga.
Auga,
Auga.
20.
People are
Auga.
going to question that too much.
That's too long.
Yeah. So I think it's like beginner phase,
Chuga.
beginner intermediate. It's what you're saying. Get to the distance, you know, get to the point where like, or even just the time, like, can you handle that amount of time moving? And then, but I think if you want to really get to the next level, it's about going over that.
Yeah.
But that's a tough ask, especially on the run when the injury risk is so high.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it might just be like you said, like where you're at. That might not be where I'm at in my training. I think I almost made it to 10 miles on my training before I did.
No, you made it to 10.
I think
like just about. I never got over.
Yeah.
I think
But maybe next year it's more.
Right. And I mean, like you see the majority of people who run a marathon don't run over, 18 to 20 on their long runs, and they still do fine. Yeah.
I think it's worth talking about exactly good transition into talk about the fatigue build, right? And like, I think that's something we need to talk about and what people need to think about as they're training. Like, cause
you want to shed that fatigue.
Right. That's what you're building. And so your recovery, you need to recover from those hard workouts so that you can fatigue, recover from the fatigue.
And that's why like each mesocycle, you're trying to build in some recovery. So you shed that fatigue, but you shed fatigue faster. You're going to lose fitness. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're going to lose some fitness, but you shed fatigue faster than the fatigue or the fitness that you're losing.
Yes,
so then you're net more fit.
Yes.
And then you're ready to go right back into some hard training.
Good point.
Which leads me to the build, the next phase that's going to be a little bit more specific.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just going to share like my, coaching philosophy, I guess.
Please do.
No.
So if you got your triangle, right?
We're back to that.
We're back to
Hey, I love the triangle.
You move one step in closer to the center. Everything gets a little more specific. But I think of build as like you're increasing your thresholds. That's kind of, when I program stuff, it's to increase those thresholds because even so base was mostly easy work, being able to go long. Your build is trying to be able to go faster.
So is this where we start to work on muscular endurance?
Yeah, and so this is like FTP build, FTP focus, and run threshold like 10K pace kind of stuff, 5K, 10K pace stuff. You're literally just trying to raise the ceiling, your aerobic ceiling. So there might be some VO2 max stuff sprinkled in, but you're really trying to become just a faster athlete.
Are you trying to also become a more efficient athlete?
It's tough. Like I keep coming back to this. Efficiency is, I think, a hugely misused word in endurance sports. You can't get more efficient on the bike.
So that means you're running a 9-minute mile, X minute mile at a lower heart rate.
Well, you're just getting fitter.
But that's just getting fitter.
Okay.
In efficiency means you're doing it. You're
define
running. Okay. Efficiency is you need oxygen sensors. Efficiency means you're running that same 9-minute mile, but burning less calories to do it. That doesn't mean your
body's more efficient at running that 9-minute mile.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with your cadence. It has nothing to do with your speed. It's just to do with how many effort.
Calories it take, not effort. But when you say effort,
and
I say
is
effort,
calories.
Kilojoules, yes. But that's not. I don't know about that's effort. Like if I go
kilojoules it's exactly what it is.
But I don't think most people think of it that way.
A battery
because listen,
burns joules.
Yvonne weighs half as much as I do. Okay,
thank you.
So Yvonne weighs half as much as I do. If we go up a hill and we both exert the same effort, right? We use that word. Well, if we exert the same effort, are we burning? Are we burning the same kilojoules? Not even close, right? You can't really change your efficiency on the bike. You can change your efficiency on the run, which literally just comes with running a lot. There's skill development.
But you brought it like an obstacle, like on a flat on a bike.
Mm-hmm. No, you can't change your efficiency on the bike.
No, but I'm saying like your effort up a hill is different than your flat.
And that's why I don't like using the word efficiency. Because your efficiency doesn't change on the bike.
Why?
Because you're locked into a position. You're putting power into the pedals and that's it.
It's not like
There's
your power's
no-
getting wasted somewhere.
Right. You're not losing power anywhere. Like, yes, some people are like all over their bike and look messy, but they're losing so little. On the run, it's a big difference.
What are you calling out?
No, nobody. You guys look great on the bike. On the run, it is a big difference. You literally become more efficient as you become a better runner. Becoming a quote unquote better cyclist, you just can push more watts. You don't get any more efficient at them. If you push 300 watts, you're still wasting 1,200 watts in heat. You know, that doesn't happen on
It
the run.
depends on how big you are.
No, it doesn't. Your efficiency is your efficiency. It's like 25%.
You just get stronger.
Yeah, you get stronger, but
Yeah.
you're still like.
Wait, so hold on. So go back. So if you're pushing 300 watts and you're 300 pounds versus pushing 300 watts and you're 100 pounds.
You're faster up a hill.
Yeah.
And probably on a flat, but you're not more efficient by
Because
the
maybe
like.
You're just able to handle
this
more.
this might explain it. Your like heart rate zones most likely will still be the same. You're just faster.
Yeah.
No, they won't be the same. If you're 300 pounds and you're going up a hill,
No,
and you're
for
pushing
that
300 watts.
But that 300-pound athlete, let's say in the beginning when they're pushing 100 watts, their heart rate's at 150. As they get fitter, at 150 they'll be able to push 300 watts.
But they haven't,
I
by
don't
the
know that that's what he's
physiological
saying.
definition. No, I am. By the physiological definition, their efficiency hasn't changed. They're still only 20% efficient. They're still only turning 20% of the calories they burn into power in the pedals.
Okay.
On the run, it actually gets better, but that's the run.
Okay.
And that's like if you look at people's progression, they often get better at the bike relatively quickly. And that's because they get fitter. People can get better at the run 10, 20 years later. Okay, I forget who there's a famous female runner from Great Britain. Oh, what was her name? She won New York a bunch of times. She was like
Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's it. Anyway,
That's the one.
they literally looked at all her metrics. Her threshold didn't get any better over a 10-year period, but she got faster and faster and faster. And it was just due to efficiency. She was better at turning calories into forward momentum. She became more efficient with her movement. That doesn't happen on the bike because you're locked into it. Where the hell were we going on this?
I don't know, Rich. Just
Calories and forward momentum.
I'm sorry. My fault.
no, I don't think it was. I think it was Rich's fault. So we're talking about the build.
We're building.
We're building now. We're going into more threshold work.
Yeah. So I like to think of build as like the time to work on your thresholds. Run, swim, bike thresholds. So that's going to be the bulk of your intensity is going to be at that level.
And I think at this point, this is where you have to start to scale back strength workouts. So during the build, hopefully at the end, if you've reached peak
Hold
strength.
on.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Oh,
Go.
Or you make those strength efforts more focused on your event.
Yes.
So now maybe some of that strength gets turned into big gear work on the bike.
Yes.
Instead of lifting weights.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay. Sorry.
So
I
let's say you're
apologize for
hitting the
interrupting.
gym twice a week, 3 times a week during your build.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably going to have to go down to like once a week. And now you're just
That's
maintaining
not what he
strength.
said.
If
No,
you're
if you're doing like
your own strength stuff.
yeah, so now let's say you're just trying to maintain strength, and now into your actual sport workouts.
Let's go back. Maintain your general strength.
Yes.
Okay.
So like if you were just working on back squats or lunges, and you get up to a certain weight that you're able to now do for reps, you're not going to try to increase weight.
Or maybe now you turn some of the gym work into things that look more like you would be needing
Lunges.
So maybe now instead of general strength and being stronger at back squats, you're doing single leg extensions, or you're doing, isolated movements that look more like what you need to do on race day.
I think as we have to spend more time in the specific sports, something has to give.
Well, for time and also
because of time,
for
if we don't have
injury, risk of injury.
So if we don't have
Apparently,
unlimited
ideally,
time,
we have all the time in the world.
we're
We
going to have to cut back time in the
He doesn't
gym.
listen to what I say.
Came in spunky.
We're going to cut out time in the gym, but then, like you said, big gear work
Mhm.
or hills on
We'll let
running.
this guy in.
We'll do hills on running.
Right.
Like different.
Yes.
That's going to maintain strength.
Yeah.
Or,
Right. Make it more specific. Make those strength efforts more specific to your event.
Yes.
Now, this is the caveat, and this is like everybody busts my balls about like no strength. Greg is like, right? As we get older, the strength component to just general well-being and health is important. And it's something, if you want to be 100% focused on performance, maybe it has to give a little bit. But if you want to be a well-rounded human being in your late 40s and 50s, then strength might need to take more of a center stage at the expense of performance.
Yeah.
So that's all.
Overall picture.
Yes.
Resiliency.
But I think, like you said, if you can bring that strength into your sports-specific
Right.
training,
Yeah.
then you're kind of getting the best
Sure.
of everything.
Right. Like your upper body work, for the most part, you don't need too much upper body work for triathlon. But you're doing
Swimming?
Could do paddles, lots of
Who let
paddles.
this guy
interrupts
in?
me before I
I did some upper body work this week, and it was like, what's happening?
New muscles. New muscles.
So you go from doing lat pull downs and pull ups and stuff like that in the gym to you get a extra big set of paddles and you start doing that stuff in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
You're hitting the absolute specific muscles that you're using. You're turning some of that general strength into more specific strength. But you needed to do that base stuff to be able to pull on that.
This is all starting to make sense, like right now.
Yes. Right?
The light bulb's going
It
off.
all came together.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Like when I
I think
started
we took the
listening.
scenic route, but
When I
we
started
got
listening
there.
to this triathlon training Bible, I was like, man, I should have looked at this years ago.
What the heck was I
Yeah.
doing?
I was like, wow, this is what Greg thinks about. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, fireworks.
Yeah.
No,
Rich is,
Fireworks?
No,
Which
Rich
is
wants to yell at me.
No.
I don't
I
care.
try
You-
to bring our listeners the
Dude,
best.
you could yell as much as you want.
No,
It's
I
okay.
try to bring
Yeah.
our listeners the best information and most rounded information because I
Yeah.
know what you guys are talking
Yeah.
about. So I'm trying to draw it out for our listeners so
Yeah.
they understand it too, instead of just like, the triangle with, the whole
Draw
thing.
my
'cause
triangle.
the triangle is perfect.
It is,
And we
but
wanna
our
end up in the
listeners
center.
can't see it.
Yes, we have to describe it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my point.
All right,
you
so-
have to. I'm trying to get you guys to describe everything you're saying, like efficiency. That's why we spent so
Efficiency's
much time on it.
hard.
I think
because
if you
people
just-
use it the wrong way. That's my
I
biggest.
get it. I'm not arguing, but I
Yeah.
wanted to draw it out.
I think if you just did
to
it
the
in a
perfect
less
definition.
combative tone.
is
No.
that a word?
You can be
Combative?
combative is the word, but it's fine. You could be. I'm not taking
Combative?
personal offense.
right.
Offense
I
to
think
it.
we're good. I think
like
we're all
Yeah,
combative.
it's
Yeah.
devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good
Right.
break.
got
Moving
it.
on.
So in this phase, we are frequency, duration, and intensity. We are playing with intensity.
Right, because if we did everything correctly, the frequency and the duration is there already.
So we just have
It's consistent.
and you've adapted to that. That's this is something I forgot about when we were talking about a 10% rule. Something I think is maybe
Can we go back? Because I don't think you explained the 10% rule.
I thought James did. No,
well, it's
Did
just
you?
like normally, like you for progressive overload, safe numbers, 10% increase in either duration, intensity, or frequency. But if your frequency and duration is already maxed out, then intensity is the last thing. Wait, no, that's not what we're talking about. But like duration, let's just say like adding 10% more time or distance is a safe before causing injury or something. But
Right.
Greg was saying, in the
Yeah,
beginning you could do more, towards the end you do less.
And
Maybe
it-
it averages out to 10%.
and it
Who knows?
also is like if you're just adding duration, maybe you can add more than 10% if you're keeping the intensity low, So I don't love like these come up with a number that you can post on a website. And that's the thing. Like all this is, it's easy to get clicks. Like how much can you do? How do you build up to a marathon? Like here's a good number. Everybody's different, but like you don't do 10%. What I think is a better way to think about it is make a bump and then stay there for a while, right? Like go from 10 hours to, let's use your 10% rule. Go from 10 hours to 11 hours, but then stay at 11 hours for 2 or 3 weeks and see what happens. And then if you feel good at 11 hours, like go to 12 or 13 hours if you can, and then see what happens for 2 or 3. Instead of being like, okay, I'm going to go from 10 to 11 to 12 to, 13.2 to like that, because that's what people hear. They hear the 10% rule and they sit down with a freaking calculator and they're like, okay, I'm doing 9 hours. So next week I can do 9.9. And I apply the 80-20 rule. So that's, and like, no, that's not how you, like, that's not how it works. Like, make a change, see how you do with that change. And then if you do good, then stay there for a while. And if it doesn't change, like, and if you can't handle it, then come back a little bit. Like, it doesn't have to be this formulaic approach to everything.
It's more of an iterative process.
Yeah.
It sounds like if you have a good coach, they don't follow this hard, fast numbers.
They're gonna none of this.
They're gonna look at your numbers.
Yeah.
They're gonna see your fatigue, your training load, and then
Well,
your
that's what
numbers.
I said. I wanted to see the feedback of what the numbers are before you make a decision on what to increase.
So
And-
Rich has been the good coach all along.
And like you guys were talking about, like the 3 weeks off, 1 week, or 3 weeks on.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
3
right.
weeks off?
Shh. No.
Sign me up for this
Wait a
one.
minute. There's a plan like that?
3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 loading weeks, a recovery week, or a week to absorb. One of the athletes I work with, and I'm sure he's okay with me talking about him, but Henry, because of just life situation, we were able to really dial in his like day-to-day recovery a little bit better. We got rid of recovery weeks.
Oh, wow.
And he was okay with that. Like, it was something we talked about, because I know, like, you and I have talked about a little bit, where you're like, I really look forward to that week of knowing on the calendar, like, okay, this is going to be a kind of chill, easier week. I'm going to be able to get my life stuff in, like, I'll be able to be a little bit better at home, like, whatever. His situation was completely different. And I said to him, like, you're loading well. You're absorbing what I'm giving you. Like, let's keep going with this and see where it goes if you're okay with it. And we were able to last like 6 or 8 weeks of his half marathon build. We were able to get rid of recovery weeks.
This hypothetical athlete called Henry.
Yeah. No, I mean, Henry's fine, I'm sure.
What up,
Yeah.
Henry?
He's a listener.
He is a loyal listener.
And so
Yes.
it's like, well, if you can get rid of that recovery week, you get an extra loading week in there, over the course of a
Wow.
macro cycle. Like, how much does that add up?
And he did great this year.
He
Mhm.
did phenomenal. Like,
Say it. Say it.
phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
I mean, Henry's 50. I think he just turned 51, and he set a PB in the half marathon by 2 minutes.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
Qualified
Beast.
for Boston this year. He's headed on the upward trajectory. But like,
Staying on the payroll.
yeah,
He doesn't know that he's doing Nuga this year.
he's not doing Nuga this
Choo
year.
choo.
He's not doing
Come
Nuga
on,
this year.
ride the train.
Wow, blast from the past. Haven't heard that in a while. Okay, so wow, that was a roundabout way to talk about base or build period.
All right. Build.
I
One of
like
my
it, though.
least favorite parts.
I actually don't think. Well, I mean, maybe. Yeah,
Because you leave that comfort of base.
yeah.
I think, though, with like a good training plan, you're ready for it.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't go from 0 to 60. A lot of times, like, I don't even know where I'm at in my training, because, when I look at it, it's like, especially when I just kind of do, it might be more. I might be like, oh, I got to hit these numbers or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, I'm
Yeah.
ready for it.
Mhm.
So that's what's nice about going through these cycles. It really should just be like,
Yeah.
what's coming.
And it should like lead into the next one. You shouldn't have necessarily like, okay, you're doing 100% of your work at zone 1 and 2, and then the next week you're like, oh shit, where'd this zone 4 stuff come from? Like,
Yeah.
it should start to be sprinkled in a
Yep.
little bit towards the end of base. You start to do a little bit of zone 4 stuff, and then like it's not a total shock to the system.
Any pitfalls people fall into during the build phase?
Skipping the easy stuff so that they can do
Right.
better at the hard stuff.
Just constantly
Really?
going
People do
hard.
that?
Well, people are like, well, if I can't get to this workout this week, like, what do I skip?
I usually skip the hard stuff.
And that's from a long-term, improvement strategy. That's probably the best way to do it, because it's not the hard work that makes you better. It's the consistent, easy stuff that really makes you better.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think people are like, oh, I'm tired and I got a hard workout on Thursday. Let's skip Wednesday. But like, then it throws your balance of like hard to easy off, and you're losing that. And this is, I don't want to, I feel like I'm talking too much this show.
No. This episode's all about you, the professor.
I don't like that.
We're just here for the cherries.
Shit, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Skipping the
That's
hard
what you
stuff.
see, something.
Skipping the easy stuff.
Damn it.
Another pitfall is catch up. Don't play catch up.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, you can't. That's true. You can't like, oh, you missed something hard, just push to another day. I had a good point and I totally lost it.
You had said,
get there.
No, it's not. If it
Okay.
comes to me, I'll interrupt everybody. But
and then the key too during build too is that you need to do the easy so that you can do the hard
Mhm.
hard.
Yeah.
Problem is sometimes people do the easy too hard,
mm-hmm.
and then they're not able to do the hard hard. They do the hard easy
Is it
when the
coming?
hard should have been hard.
Let's talk about a hypothetical athlete who goes out there and does hard all the time because every workout needs to be a hard workout.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the adaptation for the hard workout needs to happen, it doesn't happen as efficiently
This
or
is-
as well as if they did the easy and then did the hard the way they're supposed to do the hard.
Yes, absolutely. And that's like that's the gray zone paradox. Everything ends
is
up
happening?
being in that gray zone. Because like exactly what you're saying. They make the easy too hard, the hard can't then be done at the right
Exactly.
intensity. And
You need to do easy, and you need to
But
do
someone
the
can go
ones.
hard all the time,
Yeah, they can.
they can't.
then like
Shout
and they're
out Mike
able
Lucino.
to continue to improve. That's one thing, right? If you let's just say you have genetics, you're young,
That is
whatever.
a very
No.
Performance enhancement.
No.
No, just saying.
See,
No. Hear me
No.
out. Hear me out though. Someone's doing that, whatever, and
turn his mic
they
off,
adapt
please.
and they're like able to go hard all the time, right? And they're seeing improvements. The problem is, at some point though, you're going to be overtrained. You're
You're
get
not
injured.
human, and you'll break.
Right. That's what will happen. You will stop seeing those gains very quickly, and you're not like it's
not sustainable.
not even like kind of sustainable.
It's not even good for you.
I'm just saying though, like there are some people young. Let's just say they're tons of testosterone.
Mhm.
They're just genetic freaks. They can just punish themselves all the time. But at some point, if they're continually pushing their
You
limit,
talk to those people, and they're like, "We go to physical
But
therapy."
okay, here's the thing. I really think that those people are so few and far between, and there's a ton of people who think they're those people and they're not.
right?
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of people who are like, I go hard.
Stay hard.
And then bring them on a hill repeat ride from the Alpine Boat Basin, and they puke out off the side of the cliff after 2 of them because they don't know what hard really is. They're like, oh, I felt like I was going hard, but like physiologically they couldn't because they can't. Like, so I think there's people who think they're that, but they're not. I think I think there are people who are what you're saying, and we're talking fractions of a % of the population. And I don't know any of those people.
I just think it's interesting, and this is very small portion of the population, but the Iron Cowboy had said when he was doing an Ironman distance every day for
AKA James' boyfriend.
was it 100? How many?
100 days.
100 days.
101, I mean.
In the beginning, he was getting stress fractures. His shin was about to just snap.
Mhm.
Like
But
I said, they
somewhere
break.
in the he just powered through. Somewhere around in like the 70s of 100, he started getting faster. Like his body had adapted. So like
To what? To that unbelievably low level of exertion.
yes, but his frequency, his volume was super high. So he was playing with something.
Yeah.
But he adapted. Like his body
Sure.
finally adapted. So like he, you know.
But we're talking about different things. You're talking about adapting to the low end of the curve,
Yes.
not to the high end. Like
Yes.
I'm saying, let's take a high rocks athlete or a CrossFit athlete, and let's put them out on they can't train that way for long periods of time and continually see improvement. Like they're even probably doing lots of base aerobic work. They're not revving the engine to redline every day time they go and work out.
I think that's the biggest adjustment that people have to make, especially when they come from those types of fitness levels where they are used to the no pain, no gain kind of mentality and training for specific performance goals.
Yeah.
I even see it here at the clinic where those types of athletes, I call them the spray bottle athletes, where you have to the hardest part of their rehab is stopping what they're doing so that they can recover and they can heal and they can get to where they want to go eventually, but with rest and pulling back way farther than what they're comfortable with. I realized in this world where, again, it's you're training for performance. You're not training for a certain fitness or
aesthetic or something like that, for sure.
Exactly. So.
Good point.
I know.
Now, do we want to keep going to the race and
I don't know.
taper or cut this?
I feel like this would be...
This might be a good spot to stop.
I feel like we should talk about we forgot to mention the whole thing with form.
Form?
Form.
Where was that?
It's not on there.
Wait, hold on. One last thing with
sneaking in these topics.
Part of the reason that we do things in this order, and this was kind of going to feed into what we're talking about. The bigger your base, the more that you can handle of that hard stuff. So if you have zero base, you just can't handle that much intensity because you fall flat after one or two efforts.
You're destroyed.
So you might take a new athlete and you give them, let's just be simple, a bike trainer workout, and you give them, 3 by 10 minute efforts at threshold, right? So that's a solid workout, right? If they're a new athlete, that might destroy them for a couple of days, and that might be all they can handle. But if you give a seasoned athlete, somebody who has a big base, somebody who's done lots of work at low intensity, they don't need to be doing lots of high intensity stuff. They might be able to do 6 by 10s at threshold, right? It might take 4 or 5 years to get to that point where they can go from 3 by 10 to 6 by 10. But think of the improvement, one, that's the progressive overload, because 3 by 10s they might be losing fitness doing 3 by 10s, but it takes 6 by 10s to get the improvement. But over a period of time, if you can do those 6 by 10s week after week, you're going to get the improvement from that. It needs to be specific to the athlete, but it needs to be progressive in the season over the long term. And that's why we do the base first, so that you can absorb that quantity of work.
Agree.
Agree.
All right, so do we stop there?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to bring up form. But I feel
form,
like
right.
Form.
That's kind of the whole point of periodization is to be in peak form, race form. I don't know how you want to describe it, but
You have to define form. I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, because you say form, I think of almost technique.
not technique,
but
but
you're not talking about technique. You're talking about
I'm talking about
Coming
race
to the race
readiness.
ready
Race
and-
readiness.
Yeah.
So the whole point is to be peaking for the race.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're your best form for that A race.
I think we discussed that a little bit in the beginning, right?
But we didn't define it.
Define it.
Form.
Go.
I don't
Form.
think it's form.
That's what it's called. Form.
Okay.
I don't like that word.
Define it.
Form is your race readiness.
That's race readiness. That's not form. Form
Yeah.
is like your
I-
pedal stroke.
That's what the announcers on the cycling races call it, form. I can understand. I understand what you're saying when you say form.
Oh, the British people?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because I learned this from the Triathlon Training Bible.
I just think of Hook when they're bad form.
All right. So next week when we come back, we're going to talk about what maybe the specialty phases will look like. We're going to also talk a little bit about some of the variations on the periodization model. We'll talk about block periodization. We'll talk about reverse periodization, and what type of athletes those might be most beneficial for. And we'll kind of wrap up this whole periodization show.
Get your shot glasses out.
Yeah, with our part 2 to this deep dive into how to plan for your best race season yet.
It'll be perfect timing for your next season.
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening. That's another episode of the Quad Pod. Thanks everyone for listening to the Next Level Quad Pod. We really appreciate you spending time with us and listening to everything that we have to offer. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review and a rating. Those little things go a long way towards us being able to bring you more content like this. If you'd like to learn more about what we have to offer, please go to our website at goteamnltry.com. There, you can find out about all the different things we provide that can help you reach your athletic potential. Thank you again for finding time in your busy schedule to spend some time with the Quad Pod.